Hello guys, in today's video I would like to show you some interesting patterns and ideas in SLAW defense. We can look one interesting game between Garry Kasparov, ex-world champion, and Stefanos. Game played in Patras. It's a simultaneous exhibition. This game doesn't have too many theoretical meaning, but in strategy way is very interesting game. So let's look. White pieces have Kasparov, d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, e3, e6, bishop d3, bishop e7, knight c3, knight bd7, castle, castle, b3. So we have a standard position here. b3 was not only move, of course. Kasparov played b3. Also possible for white is e4. White tried to open a game in the center. So in that case, usually white have to take, like happened in the game Haritonov-Puric. D takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop takes, knight f6, bishop c2, c5, bishop g5. White gain more space in the center and he stay better here. C takes d4, queen d3. Now he threats bishop f6 and queen h7. So here black must play g6, rook ad1, knight h5, bishop e7, queen e7, queen d4, b6, bishop e4, rook b8, knight e5, queen c5, queen c3, f5, bishop f3, knight f4, rook fe1, queen c7, queen d4. White controlled the d file and he stayed better. So obviously black have difficulties to continue. So here he go with the g5, and after b4, bishop b7, a4. White again completely space in the center, and on the queen side bishop f3, knight f3, rook bd8, queen e5, knight e5, king g7, king f1, rook e8, g3. White won in 35 moves. He get the better endgame here. So let's go back to the b3. b3 is a move which Kasparov played. Black continue with the b6. This is a most playable idea. b6, bishop b2, bishop b7, queen e2, c5. Here we can look a couple ideas, strategy ideas which black can do. One of the ideas is c5, what happened in the game, and also we can also look rook c8 idea. So after rooks, instead of c5, after rook c8, rook ac1, rook e8, rook fd1, bishop d6, knight a4, queen e7, knight e5, bishop a3. Black idea is to push c5. So the most important moment in that case for white will be if he takes on c5. He will open his strong bishop, and black use bishop a3 strategy pattern to exchange that bishop and take off the possible pressure on white a1 edge 8 diagonal. But after knight e7, bishop a3, queen a3, c5, b takes c5. In a case b5, interesting for white is knight c3, e5, bishop f5, rook c7, bishop d7, rook d7, d takes e5, rook takes e5, knight b5, c takes, and after c6 white have a clear advantage. So let's go back to the b takes c5. In that case white can take on c5, and after rook c5, e5. We have a classical position where actually white have a pressure on the c file. So after queen d2, e4, bishop e2, rook a8, b4, a5, b takes, bishop a6, bishop a6, rook a6. Become very interesting heavy endgame, heavy pieces endgame. Rook b1, king f8, h3, rook ea8, rook b7, rook 6 a7, rook a7, rook a7, rook c6, queen a5, queen a5, rook a5, and after rook c5 white go to the fourth winning endgame, which later white won in 44 moves. This position happened in the game Petron Pauli, August 1976. So instead of just like I said, after c5, instead of rook c8 idea, after queen e2, so black, we can take a look also idea queen c7. What happened in Grandmaster game Vizhvanavin Vojska. In that game, white continue with the rook ac1, rook ad8, rook fd1. Strategically, it's very important to say here in this line, white rooks always are on d1 and c1, because when the black push c5 and white open a game in the center, the rooks on the c and d file become very active. So that's why white put the rooks on the f and d file. So who gonna decide to play this line with white? He must always try to put the rooks on f1, d1 and c1. On these files, white rooks are the best. So in a game after queen b8, white continue h3, h6, bishop b1, c5, c takes, e takes. Of course, knight d5 was also possible, but after knight d5, bishop d5, e4, white will get a space in the center. So in the game was e takes, and after queen c2, queen a8, knight h4. Now white make very strong attack on the king side, c takes, knight f5. Now the bishop hangs, so black don't have time to pick up the knight on c3. Black play bishop b4, but after rook d4, bishop c5, knight h6 check. Very nice tactical solution. G takes and rook g4. King h8, knight d5, black resign, because he cannot protect mate on h7. In a case if black take on g4, white simply win with the queen h7. So let's go back to the main important middle game strategy position. We look rook c8, we look queen c7, and now we can back to the game. In Kasparov-Stefanot's game, black plays c5, rook fd1, rook e8. Now the second interesting moment here for black is move c takes d4. In that case, white must take with the e pawn, and we can little stay here to look this position. White have these pawns in the center, d4 and c4. These pawns are very mobile, so in possible moment white can push some of these pawns and open a dark bishop. That could be interesting idea for white. So let's see. After e takes d4, a possible idea is, for example, g6. In that case, white can play knight e5, rook c8, a4, knight b8, a5, knight h5, g3. So white is clear better. Game finished draw, but white is definitely better. That was Grandmaster game, not Bishop. German Grandmaster Klaus Bishop was black in this game, and he make a draw, but white was clear better after g3. So let's go back to the d takes c4, b takes, rook c8, knight e5, queen c7, f4, rook fe8, a4, a6. So white dominate in his center. His knight is very strong on e5, rook ac1. Now we see again the rooks always on d and c1. Knight f8, knight e4, knight g6, rook f1, knight e4, bishop e4, bishop e4, queen e4, f5. White here threats f5, so practically black must play that move. But after queen e3, knight e5, f takes. The pawns are very annoying in the center. Of course, he cannot play that move at once because bishop c5 and bishop pin the queen, so white will prepare that. h6, queen b3, bishop g5, rook c2, rook d8, c5, rook d5, c6, rook cd8, bishop a3, king h7, bishop d6, and practically after this it's very hard to stop all these pawns, and black decided to give quality but not good enough. After this, bishop d6, rook d6, he takes rook e1, rook d6, rook e1, rook c6, rook c6, queen c6, and after queen e6 white get the decisive advantage. Now we can back to the main line. After rook fd1, rook e8, rook ac1, rook c8. So now we are finally in a Kasparov-Stefanotto's game, and we can see how Kasparov on amazing way. This is very standard position, guys. This position we have in many games played, but this game was interesting because in next couple of moves Kasparov used one very interesting pattern and completely crash the black position. Kasparov take on d5, pawn takes, bishop f5, bishop d6, d takes c5, b takes c5. Especially important way here. Let's go back a couple moves. I wanna keep attention on this move, guys. Bishop f5. Very important strategy pattern. Why this move is so important? We can see in the next two moves. Bishop d6, d takes c5, b takes c5. He must take with the b pawn, otherwise he stay with the isolated and nice spot on d4 for white. So he must take, black must take c pawn, and now knight b5. After knight b5 we have completely why this game is winning, because now we see why bishop f5 is so important pattern, because after this move all these pieces hang, and practically after knight b5 black can almost resign a game. He continued with the bishop a6, he tried to pin the knight, but after bishop takes f6, g takes, rook d5, rook c6, bishop d3, rook b5, bishop b5, bishop b5, rook b6, and the rest is matter of technique. Kasparov played the best. Rook cd1, queen c7, knight h4, king h8, bishop d7, queen d7, knight f5, rook e6, queen d2. The pressure on d5 is finally not possible to defend for black. He gonna lose a bishop now, so he just play check, and after king h2 he resign. In this video I try to explain some interesting middle game strategy ideas and patterns in SLAW. In my next video we can also continue with the SLAW, but other theoretic variation also with very interesting strategy, middle game ideas and patterns. Thank you for watching my video.